Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I am your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you today?
I'm doing well, except for all of the chaos that is threatening my mental health, also known as James Harden.
Ah, yes. What a weird saga that was.
You know, for most people, they'd consider it weird. In Philly, we consider it an off-season.
Yeah, truly. It was
It's
like
great.
all over my Twitter, and I was like, what happened? I didn't think this was anything. And then he was just like hanging out with kids, and then was like
In China, too,
Yeah.
to be clear. He was talking to a bunch of Chinese kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they know what he was saying. I don't know why he was talking about Daryl Morey, but whatever.
Very interesting.
I guess.
Very interesting. Just another day to
I
be
hate
a
it
Philadelphia sports fan for you.
It's fine.
We have lots planned today. We're going to talk about our favorite, the storylines we're looking forward to most in the AFC this season, things we're following, go over some news. But first, I want to welcome a guest, a fellow member of the Undroppables, Vi. If we want to pull Vi up.
Oh, no. Yes, I do.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, Vi.
Yeah.
So Vi's going to join us today. Vi is currently running an auction fundraiser for, for money for relief for the fires that devastated Lahaina in Maui this past week. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Vi?
Yeah, sure. So outside of moonlighting as somewhat of a laughing stock of the Undroppables, I also own a small business here in Los Angeles where I'm stationed. I'm originally from Hawaii, but we decided to hold a online auction. And to start off, it's just going to be a week of LA local-based things, and then people on Twitter and fantasy football community, which is always great at coming together for these type of things, wanted to help out. So I kind of expanded it, and it's kind of grown from there. You know, the auction is only 2 days old, and we've raised over $5,000, which is more than I could have ever imagined. And so the money right now is going to the Maui Strong Fund, which is helping the communities directly. It's not through like American Red Cross or through FEMA. It's out there in the community, getting the needs directly to the people where they need it. So it's obviously something near and dear to my heart, and I'm grateful to be here with you all. I've been trying my hardest to find a way to get on this, so unfortunately this is the way to do it, but I'm happy you guys had me on to talk about the auction and just shine some light on the people in Lahaina.
Of course. And Vi, where can we find the link to that? On your Twitter, correct?
So yes, it's on my pinned page on Twitter, which is @ViSalis. And you can just go there, and it also has links to how to donate directly, which is the Maui Strong Fund. There's also, if you want, what I'll do is I'll post some other links, because there are some ways to directly donate to the families. They started an Instagram page.
I was going to mention that.
What's that?
I was going to mention that. So
yeah.
if you didn't hear some chance you didn't hear what was happening, and you want to read the stories of the families that you're donating money to, either by auction or personally, you can go to on Instagram @Lahaina_Ohana_Venmos. And that gives you pictures of some of the families who lost everything in the fires, and gives you a little bit of stories, about their lives. Some families had generational homes that are gone, and have to fight an uphill battle to keep these properties and rebuild their lives there. So if you're looking for extra stories and to learn about a little bit about where your money's going, you can go there too.
Yeah, and I would also say people are always concerned about all the different tragedies, like they want to make sure their money's going to the right place. So, there are places like that. Including the Ohana family page. And there's also, at the same time, because of social media, there's a whirlwind of this is why this happened, or a conspiracy about this. And I just hope everyone can just focus their attention on the people in need rather than the who's, what, when's, why's, and just focus on helping those people, because those are the people in need, and all the other stuff will work its way out. But there's people in need day in and day out, families, little ones. So we just want to make sure we're there to support them the best way we can.
Awesome. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you just received, or you want to keep that secret?
I mean, yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Dusty Baker first started going to Hawaii in the early 80s when he was a member of the Dodgers. They used to send the championship teams from each team to Hawaii to do like a super teams competition. And then he started doing baseball camps when he was a manager of the Giants. One of the minority owners was from Maui. And so I just reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm holding this auction. And he said, I'm happy to donate. And I was expecting maybe a signed ball or, tickets to auction off. And I got 2 boxes today. I got a signed jersey from him with the championship patch. I got 2 signed bats. I got a Jose Altuve signed ball, an Alex Bregman ball. There it is right there. Mm-hmm. Just like every one of those shirts is signed by him on one of the pictures of him. I just was blown away by his generosity, and I don't even know what to make of it at this point. It's just sitting in a box, like tucked away somewhere, and I don't even know. So that hat was worn in the All-Star game. It has an All-Star patch on the side. That jersey, as I said, has the World Champions patch that we don't really need to go into too much detail about it here. And then all those shirts are signed, and those balls, you have all the way far to the left is the Jose Altuve ball, a couple of Dusty Baker balls, Dusty Baker bats. So just some wristbands, everything there is signed. There's also a world champion commemorative ring. I'm sorry, Michael, I'm just the messenger here. But I'm just blown away that he would put all this together. So not sure how we're going to package everything. I'll make sure to update Twitter. I know you guys will share it as well once we figure out how to make sure this gets to the people of Maui in terms of the donations and the auctions. But yeah, that came in today. And I also got news from the Royals that they'll be sending me some things as well. So, there's some big donations going on. Like Marcus Mariota is doing a lot of great things. Mm-hmm. Shane Victorino, another guy who's from Maui, who's doing a lot of stuff. But I just was reaching out to people I know personally who have connections, and I was lucky enough to get some of these things alongside some other really cool sports memorabilia that some of our friends have donated on. There's Derek Thomas autographed cards. There's tickets to watch Bijan Robinson play in Arizona. A lot of fun stuff. So you can check it out. There's wine, there's whiskey, there's a Sugar Ray Leonard autograph, there's a George Strait poster. There's something for everybody. So check it out. And hopefully we continue to raise money.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll make sure to reshare that link. Everyone who follows Duncan or I, make sure you're following Vi, and we all will repost that link. And I will make sure to keep everyone updated once all that amazing stuff is on there.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for coming on, and we'll have to have you back on another day to come and actually hang out with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. You guys have a good one.
Of course, you too.
All right.
Bye. All right. Oh, we're on the wrong sides. That was
there we go.
Weird.
We're good.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone look through that auction. I'll make sure to share that again after the show. There's some really, really cool memorabilia there, and it is growing to an amazing foundation, an amazing cause. And I do recommend checking out that Instagram page just to read some of these stories and see what people are going through and see where your money is going when you're making a donation, or in this case, you're getting something back. It's a donation, but you're getting some cool memorabilia back. So
there's a quick shout out in there. Philly great. Shane Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian. There we go.
Yep.
So, yep. That was nice to hear his name.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get started on the rest of our show. We'll talk about some news, and then I'll let you do your thing. Some news. We have 2 running backs signed in the NFL in this past week. We have Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to the New England Patriots. He was making, I didn't even pull it up. That's my bad.
1 year, $6 million, up to $6 million.
Okay, up to $6 million.
Yeah,
and then
I believe it's like $3 million guaranteed.
Yep.
The rest is incentives.
Yep, and I think one was like $1 million signing bonus. The rest was incentives. The signing bonus was factored into the up to $6 million. And Dalvin Cook was signed to an $8 point something million deal with the New York Jets, which was rumored for a while, but finally true. The Jets obviously lost Breece Hall to an injury last year. He is due to come back this season, but adding some depth and another good player on that Jets roster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you were planning on talking about the conversation we had. The somewhat of a conversation, but you texted me after Dalvin Cook signed.
Yeah.
And you were just, I forget the exact words, but you were like, why did Dalvin Cook get more money than Zeke Elliott? And I was like, because he's not washed.
Yes. But I also meant like, I sent you a whole paragraph after that I was like, do you think it
you're not happy
other
with
things?
me.
No, because you should have known you're going to take it really literally, but said a whole bunch of other things.
How else am I supposed to answer that? How is anyone supposed to answer that? Why did this person make more money and they play the same position?
Wine on my porch and didn't
I don't know.
Explain it any better.
He's better? What other kind of answer were you looking for? Clearly it has to do with the tax implications of playing in New York versus playing in New England. Like, no.
Imagine, I would have been like, wow, you know a lot.
No, that's a basketball thing. That's why players like to go to Miami.
Yeah.
And that and the weather.
I did know that. So yeah, 2 more running backs. The Zeke, I liked Jax's tweet. The exact tweet, I don't know the exact tweet, but it was about like Ramondre Stevenson having 100 and something amount of carries last year, and the rest
200.
of the Patriots running backs having 150 or whatever it was. That Ezekiel Elliott's not really coming for that Ramondre Stevenson. He's coming for the number that all of the other ones had combined last season, which was interesting. I think
Damian Harris mainly.
Yes. Other news, Michael Orr.
Yeah, this sucks.
Horrible. So I'm sure if any of you are football fans, you've seen the movie The Blind Side, which follows Michael Orr, or how do I want to phrase it? Was a story supposedly about how Michael Orr,
based on the book.
Yes, was adopted by the Toohey family in Memphis, and they took him in, adopted him, and got him, schooling and coaching, and helped get him to the NFL.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out it was allegedly all a lie. Michael Orr came out.
Not all a lie, but very, very, very misleading.
Yeah. So the Michael Orr is alleging that they did not adopt him, that right around when he turned 18, they actually had him sign paperwork for a conservatorship, which if you followed any of the Britney Spears stuff, you've heard that word before. And he thought they were adoption papers. He was misled into believing they were adoption papers. They said, it's just because of your age. It doesn't, this is the exact paperwork we have to have you sign. He's saying that he had his doubts after he saw the movie about, their intentions.
The way he was portrayed
as being, like having intellectual difficulties, where Michael Orr is really smart, and people around him say he's really smart, was in that school.
And he played football before
he
was, met up with the Toohey family. He was already excelling.
Yeah. So a lot of news coming out about how the Tooheys fabricated a lot of the movie that got Sandra Bullock, allegedly got Sandra Bullock, Emmy, Oscar? Which one? Oscar. Okay, that's what
Emmy is TV.
Emmy, yes, there we go. Oscar. So that's all coming out, and he is suing the Toohey family.
Yeah, and don't give Sandra Bullock a hard time on Twitter.
No, don't do that.
Just don't be a moron. Come on.
It's not Sandra Bullock.
Regardless of whether or not the movie was true, you're not giving her an award. People are telling her to give her award back. I'm just people are absolute and total morons. Yeah. What the heck?
And if the Toohey family convinced a lot of people of this, why is it Sandra Bullock's fault?
It's not Sandra Bullock's fault.
Twitter is so dumb.
The bright side is we can still have the feel-good story of the dude whose name is escaping me, who played Michael Orr in the movie. He was homeless prior to starring in that movie and doing a fantastic job. So I will take that with me at the very least.
Yes.
But yeah, I loved that movie growing up. Must have watched it a billion times with my family. I loved Michael Orr ever since that moment. I loved rooting for him. I loved seeing him win a Super Bowl. So an incredible story that might not be as incredible as we thought. unfortunately. And speaking of giving awards back, this was not on our rundown, but I just thought about it. Did you end up watching the untold story of Johnny Manziel?
I did.
Yeah. So speaking of giving awards back, this was something that had been floating around on Twitter a little bit. And basically, if you're unaware, Reggie Bush accepted money during his time in college because he's one of the greatest college football players to ever live, specifically in college. And he was forced to give his Heisman trophy back. He's rescinded from having received his Heisman.
Yep.
Because apparently that's a thing that you can do. Whatever. But people are now asking, why is Johnny Manziel allowed to keep his Heisman, especially the fact that he's putting out this documentary about everything that's happened, everything that he did that was very clearly not illegal, but not
illegal in the NCAA's eyes.
Yes, not following the NCAA's guidelines. I don't have an answer for that, but I do think it's an interesting conversation.
Johnny Manziel answered the question.
Oh.
On Twitter.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. He said, like, listen, like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not condoning anything I did, but Reggie Bush should still have his Heisman. Like, there's no reason that I shouldn't have that I should still have a Heisman and he shouldn't. Like, at least I don't mean he made a comment. He made a comment about it. He addressed the specific tweet that went viral that was like, why does he still have a Heisman when Reggie Bush doesn't? It sparked conversation about, like, because of when the incidences of taking money occurred and whatnot. But he had made a tweet about it. Are you looking for it now?
There's nothing I want to see more than for Reggie to get his Heisman back. I think what the NCAA did in that situation is complete BS. He is one of the best college football players in history and deserves to be on that stage with us every year. The only difference between my story and Reggie's is that my illegal activities did not start until after my Heisman season. Okay. So that's why he's not getting it taken away retroactively, is because it didn't happen during the season. But yeah. So. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, very good documentary. They do really good ones over there. It's the same, like, I guess, production people that did the Manti Te'o one, the girlfriend who doesn't exist or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Another
they have
really
a lot
good
of good
one.
ones. They have a lot of good ones about the basketball, the flagrant foul, the one for basketball.
Also,
they have a hockey one about the Danbury Trashers.
There was one about the basketball game where the fans fought the players.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a Meta World Peace, I believe, was in on that. Yeah, so that was very interesting. A lot of.
I loved the part there where Johnny Manziel said he watched 0.
Oh, that was so good.
They just bantered him, and they're like, they called his agent, and they were like, he's not watching film, and they're like, he has to watch some film, and then it just cuts to Johnny Manziel.
0.
Incredible storytelling, truly.
And going to be a meme forever.
Yep.
Just incredibly well done.
You have something to read for us.
Yes. So they're not a sponsor, but I'll tell you who is. And Ashley, unfortunately, you're a woman, but you have to hear about my balls.
I do.
And that is, as the NFL season is approaching, don't neglect the most important draft pick of all, your game balls. That is just as cheesy as it sounds. But we all know how injuries can ruin a season, so let Manscaped take care of that Reggie Bush of yours with their skin-safe technology. This should guarantee you have a smooth ride into the playoffs. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0, and it's time for you to do the same. Join the 9 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code UND20 at Manscaped. And yes, it is worth it. I am actually wearing their underwear right now that comes as a part of the Performance Package. I was speaking with a fellow Undroppable Jax, and we've agreed that their underwear are the best. They're actually my favorite pair of underwear, legitimately. They're very comfortable. They just feel really nice, and they take good care of my balls. And really, what more can you ask for? So go to manscaped.com today to get 20% off and free shipping with the code UND20. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code UND20 at manscaped.com. It's time to put the PP back in PPR and get a grip on your pigskin this summer with Manscaped. So, Ashley, I hope you enjoyed hearing about my
Thank
balls
you.
as much as I enjoyed talking about them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And with
You're
that,
welcome.
we're going to get into the storylines that you and I are going to be following for the AFC this season. Things we're looking forward to, following throughout the season.
Yes.
Do you want to start in the order I have it?
Yeah, sure. That's fine with me.
Okay. So we'll start with the AFC South. Lots of stories, not as much talent, but the AFC South. The Texans. What are you looking for or following with them this season?
Yeah, so this one was really easy for me, and it's D'Amico Ryans. He's a guy who I loved when he was a player, even before his time in Philly, but then his time in Philly really cemented him as just one of those all-time guys. It's very easy to root for. He was a hell of a player on the field, but he was even more of a leader. Back when it was kind of toward the end of his reign a little bit in Philly, and before he retired, we had drafted Jordan Hicks, another linebacker, and they were known as Simba and Mufasa. So there's always been a soft spot in my heart for Mufasa, D'Amico Ryans, and I especially think it's interesting because following Chip Kelly's time with, I want to say, the San Francisco 49ers, he was there as a head coach for 1 year. He's actually the one that brought D'Amico Ryans to the staff over there on the defensive side of the ball after D'Amico retired from his time in Philly. Chip Kelly was quoted saying that, who's the one guy that you've coached that you can see being a head coach? And without hesitation, he said D'Amico Ryans. Coaches will say that a lot, but now we're seeing D'Amico Ryans actually take that step, and he's doing it for the franchise that drafted him number 1 overall. Yeah. If you don't know a ton about the story of him going number 1 overall, it's a very interesting story. It's not what they wanted, not what the fans wanted anyway, but just very interesting. I learned a lot about it when he came to Philly. Just go read about it. It's really cool. It just goes to D'Amico Ryans' character and the way that he approaches the game and, life in general. But I'm excited to see what he does as a head coach. They rolled out the red carpet for him. They brought him home. They signed him to a massive deal. And he was a great defensive coordinator over in San Francisco. He was really good at putting players in the position that they need to be in to succeed. And I'm excited, on a more granular level, I'm excited to see what he does with the talent there, especially Derek Stingley, a guy that I talked about earlier this offseason as someone who I think could take a big step this upcoming season. And a big part of that reasoning is because of D'Amico Ryans. I think he's going to be able to put him in a position to succeed. And I'm just looking forward, he might not be a great head coach. I have no clue. But at the very least, I think his guys are going to fight really hard for him, and there's not much of a better way to start than that. So,
yeah. I agree with you. I think it's something everyone is going to be looking at this season. For me, as many people, I don't have many high hopes for the track. What would you say if I just said Mechie?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll say his name because mine is how will being better on paper translate on the field for this team. It's a broad statement, but because they haven't had much talent in the past, being able to take a decent step forward with some of their free agency signings. I mean, they signed Robert Woods, Jimmy Ward, Devin Singletary, Dalton Schultz. They obviously have CJ Stroud. So all of these additions, while it's still building, do we see decent improvement? Which should be a yes, but I'm just keeping an eye on, they have talent back on that roster and seeing how well it translates from paper onto the field.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's not many teams in the NFL, I think, with less expectations than the Texans. Yeah. I think really all you want to see is just some sparks from those guys that you talked about, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, especially the first round picks, the top 5 picks of this past draft. So yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yep. Next, the Colts. For me, this one's easy. It's the Jonathan Taylor situation. He obviously was sitting out in camp for a bit, was in fights with Jim Irsay because he wanted a contract extension. They had said no. He wanted to be traded. They had said no. Jim Irsay pulled him into his bus and said, stop it. And then rumors came about that he had suffered a non-football injury and was like not going to get paid for the season. And he's saying they're lying, and he's back at practice, or was back at practice. He is on an excused absence currently for personal reasons, but I'm just intrigued to see how it all plays out, more so like probably towards the end of the season, or God forbid, like an injury was to happen, if he comes back from that, anything like that. I'm just looking to see what the dynamics are there.
Yeah, I agree. And that general situation of Jonathan Taylor kind of plays into part of mine, which is obviously Anthony Richardson. He was taken top of the first round to be the quarterback of the future, but something that
he is their starter.
Yes, he was officially named the starter by Shane Steichen, who I'm also excited to see in a head coaching role. Obviously, he was Philly's offensive coordinator the last 2 years. But the Colts have spent decent draft capital over the past 3 drafts on drafting wide receivers, or maybe it was 4 drafts. Michael Pittman being a second-round pick, Alec Pierce being a second-round pick last year, and Josh Downs being a third-round pick in the most recent NFL draft. Pittman is coming up on a contract extension. This is the final year of his rookie deal. He wasn't a first-round pick, so he doesn't have that fifth-year option. They haven't negotiated anything yet. And I'm wondering, you've spent the high draft capital on those other 2 guys. Michael Pittman's probably he's definitely the most proven piece of them, but you've got Anthony Richardson now on a rookie deal. You've got Jonathan Taylor coming up for a contract extension. And I'm curious to see how they approach that situation. Again, not something that's probably going to be answered during the season, unless we start to see, if we see decline from Pittman and we see Pierce and Josh Downs kind of take, step forward and give them a reason to not re-sign Pittman, or maybe it's the complete opposite where Pittman's the only guy that's producing. I don't really know. And I think it could play out a lot of different ways, but I think most interestingly is just the idea of not really knowing what their direction is clear from an Anthony Richardson perspective, but not so much from those other offensive skill positions like Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. So it's going to be interesting to see if they consider them a part of the future or if they're just a part of the now.
Yeah, and I do think Anthony Richardson's development ties into that, right? Like what works for Richardson, what Richardson likes. Like when you draft a quarterback that high and you have high hopes for them to become a franchise quarterback, they're obviously weighing in on factors like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. How about for the Titans? Mine's super broad. Mine is just what we talk about every time with the Titans. Yep. Does this team have any idea or any direction? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know they're an NFL franchise?
They definitely know they're an NFL franchise. Mm-hmm. And apparently so does DeAndre Hopkins, which one of the more confusing moves of the offseason to me personally. Yeah. Him going there. I don't fully get it, but it is what it is, I guess. But the thing I'm most intrigued by, obviously I agree with you. I just... At this point, I don't know when we're going to find out. Like,
we'll never have an answer to that question.
I mean, like, it's just that we can say the same things we've said 1,000 times, but for some reason, even though they're trying to get rid of Derrick Henry and they're drafting quarterbacks to seemingly replace Ryan Tannehill, maybe they signed DeAndre Hopkins to a long extension and he's like 10 years older than AJ Brown. And I get it. It's a different GM now, but that doesn't change anything. If anything, I wouldn't expect a new GM to want to pay DeAndre Hopkins, because I'm looking at it and I'm saying now's probably a good time to rebuild, and I'm not really sure how paying DeAndre Hopkins is part of that, regardless of how good of a wide receiver he is. I'm a huge DeAndre Hopkins fan,
the thing is they don't know if they're rebuilding. No. They don't know if they're making a run. They don't know if they're rebuilding. Do we spend money? Do we save money? Let's do a little bit of everything and go nowhere all at once.
Yep. But all that being said, the thing in particular that I'm most intrigued to watch is Will Levis and Malik Willis. Malik Willis, I think, has outplayed Will Levis this offseason so far between preseason and, training camp reports. Even though earlier in the offseason there were rumors that even if that happened, Malik Willis could still get cut. It's impossible to tell how they feel about them. But
Malik Willis jumped Will Levis in the depth chart.
Yeah, in the unofficial depth chart, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the official one.
No, they don't have official ones. They just have the unofficial ones that are tweeted out by media and stuff. Yeah, well, the Eagles had 5. They had 5 first-string running backs Like, okay, we're really going to pretend that Trey Sermon is also the same level of starter as DeAndre Swift. Okay, media intern for the Eagles. Okay, relax. Yeah. But no, it's just I'm a big, and I've been this way I think for a while. I'm a big proponent of taking shots at the quarterback position if you don't think you have what you need to be successful for the future, a franchise quarterback. Yeah. However, I don't think going about it in the way they're going about it is necessarily anything that's going to help them, because now you've got two guys that you've spent decently high draft capital on. It's not like a 6th round rookie pick. It's a 2nd and a 3rd, I think, was Malik Willis. Is that going to convince them, if they're near the top of the draft in the next 2 years, to say, maybe we have something with these guys, and convince them not to take a quarterback in the 1st round? I don't like that, and I don't trust them to make the right decision. So I'm not really a big fan of this throwing darts in the middle rounds. I'd rather do late rounds or the 1st round, because most 2nd round picks don't turn out to be Jalen Hurts, and most 3rd round picks don't turn out to be Russell Wilson. So
yep. Yes, sir. And finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars. You want to go first or me go first?
It's Doug. I like watching Doug. I like seeing what he's doing. But really, it's just about the more specific matter of, can they take that next step? Mm-hmm. They were good last year. They snuck up on people. They surprised some people. They beat the Chargers in the playoffs, and they played a close game in the next round of the playoffs. But now we need to see them do it again. They have a tougher strength of schedule, which is going to make that harder, but Trevor Lawrence needs to take that next step and look like the guy that everyone thought he was coming out of, well, really, the guy that everyone thought he was his freshman year when he won a national championship on the biggest stage in college football. Mm-hmm. And you need to be able to see that in him. You need to be able to know for sure, because after this season, it's put up or shut up. It's time to pay our guy.
Yep.
Because we've watched what happens. Look at Daniel Jones. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to know. You need to know by the time you can extend him. You don't want to get into a Lamar Jackson situation. You don't want any of that to happen. And the sooner you can just brush it aside and move on with your lives collectively, you're in better shape. And I'm looking forward to seeing Trevor Lawrence take that next step, hopefully, and also just the team. I want them to be, week in and week out, people are saying, that's a team that can compete with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Chargers, I guess. They haven't really proven it either, but we'll talk about that later. That's the team
actually predicted to be number 1 in the AFC.
That's the Jaguars, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm saying,
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine for them is Calvin Ridley. Obviously, he was traded for. The Jags used a 2023 5th and a conditional 2024 4th, which could become a 2nd if he signs an extension, to trade for him. He played in 2020 with an unknown broken foot. He took a break and then was suspended for gambling and traded to the Jags. He seems to be doing like really, really well in camp. Obviously, I take camp speak with a grain of salt, but the film looks really good. When he was asked about, have you shaken that rust off yet? His only answer was, I'm him. That was like his full answer to the question.
Fair enough.
And he put out that Players Tribune article, which was, if you're way behind the times and haven't read that, please do, that he wrote an open letter. I'm just really intrigued to see him on this offense. I think you and I talk a lot about just younger quarterbacks in this league having hands to throw to. And that's one of the guys I would love to have if I was a younger quarterback in the league. And it gives him a true bona fide wide receiver 1. Obviously, they had Christian Kirk last year, who did step up fairly well into that role, but having a Calvin Ridley is a level up, and I'm really intrigued to see how he plays.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's going to be a really big part of them taking that next step, hopefully.
Yeah.
That and an Evan Ingram extension.
Yes. I always root for that guy.
I know.
We'll take our step to the AFC West. The Raiders. What are you looking at?
Yeah, for me, it's a little meta, but it's the reality that Raiders fans are going to have to face now that it's not Derek Carr and it's Jimmy G. I think there's going to be a sense of, maybe we didn't appreciate this guy as much as we should have. Because I don't know. I think Jimmy G will be fine. I think he's definitely the guy that that the head coach wants. They were together in New England for a bunch of years. They have a close relationship. I get it. But I mean, I'd probably take Derek Carr over Jimmy G most days of the week. So it's going to be interesting to see if that offense sort of takes a step back. And if people start to maybe give Derek Carr the credit that he's probably due, even if it's a little too late. But oh well.
Yeah. Mine, I mean, the same thing. There's nothing extremely intriguing about the Raiders for me. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at, how well Jimmy G and McDaniels can work together, given their previous relationship. That's about it. And we had, McDaniels on a little bit of an in-between, a hot seat and not. And if they don't perform this year, they had a decline from the year before. Where does he stand in that hot seat?
That's a good question. And I don't think the Josh Jacobs situation helps.
Not at all.
Neither of us mentioned it, but I think we're both looking forward to seeing how that plays out, especially after the very short-lived Saquon Barkley holdout.
Yes, indeed. So. How about those Broncos?
Why don't you go first for them?
Okay, mine is Sean Payton returning to be a head coach. Can he fix the giant mess that Nate Hackett left behind? And Russell Wilson had a career worst year last year. It was the worst he's seen. Can he help mend Russell Wilson and get him back on track? I really like the fact that Peyton is really good at utilizing his players throughout the entire field. He can go north, south, east, west, and better than a lot of coaches can. So I'm intrigued to see how, with players like Sutton, Judy, Javonte Williams, P. Ryan, Dulcich, I think that'll work really well, but I'm intrigued to see it in action. They have a lot of really, it's a range in talent, right? But really unique players who have many different skills on this offense, and having Peyton at the helm, I think, will work really well if it can be put into action properly.
Yeah, I think mine kind of goes hand in hand with that, and it's specifically the logjam that they have at wide receiver. Obviously, I would have included KJ Hamler with this in this, but he's got released sort of because of things having to do with his health. He's afraid of bears. That's also a warning. There's a very good chance Downey might start to bark in a minute here.
Okay.
She's looking at me in a certain way. But
the side eye you just gave her.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they've got Cortland Sutton, who hasn't performed as of late, but is a guy that we've seen produce in this league. Jerry Jeudy, who was a highly touted recruit out of Alabama, former first-round pick, who hasn't really broken out yet. He's looked good at times, but hasn't really done the breakout that you probably were hoping for when you drafted him. And now newly drafted second-round rookie Marvin Mims Jr. Drafted in the second round. And it's just I don't know what to think, because Russell Wilson was so bad last year. You throw in the fact that you have Greg Dulcich, whatever, at tight end. Is a big pass catching threat. It's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out with targets, and who is the alpha there. Are any of them the alpha? And is Sean? Sorry, Downey barked. I don't know if you can hear it, but it scared the crap out of me. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works. Why don't you start on the Chargers real quick?
Sure. So for me, the Chargers, the really big thing I'm looking at is Kellen Mond as the offensive coordinator. Obviously, he took over for Joe Lombardi last year. He was the previous offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm intrigued to see how well he does. I think it's going to be a really, really good fit for him. I have really high hopes. It seems players have a lot of really great things to say, even when not specifically asked about Mond. They have something nice. They bring him up. I think so many offensive starters could have been used better. They were really ineffective at the run last year, which if you play fantasy doesn't reflect in like Austin Eckler's fantasy stats, but they were ineffective at running the ball. He was just really good at scoring touchdowns. So I think that they'll be used a little bit better under this. I think we're going to see a progression from the offensive line, which is very helpful. And I'm intrigued to see, because Joe Lombardi called plays from the booth, and Kellen Mond has officially confirmed he will be calling plays from the sideline.
So this is something I hadn't thought about much until recently. I was listening to the Philly Special podcast from The Ringer with Ben Solak and Shio Kapadia. And Ben had a very and Ben, I'm a big fan of his. I think I'm actually I think he's literally my age. It's kind of weird. Big fan of his though. He does great work, and he had a very specific take that I didn't realize I agreed with so strongly, and that it's coordinators should never be up in the booth.
Never.
It's lame. With the exception being you are old enough that like you could die if you get hit on the sideline.
Okay.
That being the only like strong exception, which is very fair. Because like I remember seeing like Howard Mudd getting hit by LaShawn McCoy, and like I mean rest in peace now Howard Mudd, but like he like broke his leg or something. It was scary. Regardless, it's beside the point. So I agree, upgrade if only because he's going to be on the sideline. Sorry. The other exception that they had was if you have a quarterback that you're going to lose a fight to. Like if you were coaching Tom Brady and like you tried to give him an earful while he's walking off the field, like you're losing that argument.
Yeah.
So like just do it over the phone. I get that. Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't see how you can have meaningful connection and gain full insight without having like FaceTime with your players. That's crazy.
No. But yeah, so all that to say, the thing that I am most intrigued in seeing in monitoring is Brandon Staley. I wouldn't be shocked if this turned into a Brandon Staley gets fired, Kellen Moore takes over as head coach, and then they kind of just keep it. Yeah, what did I say?
Moore.
Oh, yeah.
You had the wrong Kellen.
Wait.
Do I have the wrong Kellen?
I think you have the wrong Kellen.
No, I think I have the right Kellen.
Kellen Moore. No, you have the wrong one. What are you talking about? It's Kellen Moore.
I have the wrong Kellen. It's okay.
Kellen Mond is like, he's like still on a roster. He's 24 years old, and he plays for the Browns. I have the wrong line.
I apologize.
Yeah, I know. Kellen Mond. What is wrong with you? Correct me. Yeah, Kellen Moore. Kind of just like low key becoming I don't know. I haven't heard the chatter that we normally hear when the coach is like kind of on their last string, sort of. But I feel that way personally about Brandon Staley. I know a lot of other people do.
I just at the end of last season.
Yeah, but like I feel like in the off season, there's normally conversations of like a couple bad moves and this dude's out type of thing. Like I forget who the last one was like. That was kind of like that. But whatever. Regardless, I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I get. And I think Kellen Moore will probably help a lot, but I just don't have any faith in Brandon Staley as a head coach and decision making, especially. So I'm intrigued to see if he can kind of change my mind with that. If having a better offense is just it's gonna help, but will it make a big enough difference?
Yeah, so. And they fired both of their coordinators at the end of last season. So if this doesn't work, your last straw is Staley. Like they gave you one last shot. So whether it's in the talk or not, like it's the proof is in the pudding. Like you're the last guy left standing. If it doesn't work, it's falling on you.
Yep.
And how about for the Chiefs?
Nothing too crazy. It's always hard with these types of teams. Yeah. But for me, it's just the young wide receivers. It's Sky Moore drafted last year, Rashee Rice drafted this year, and to an extent, Kadarius Toney. But like, really, I just, can one of them show something, please? I don't want to see more Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And I don't know. It's probably not going to be Kadarius Toney because he's dead all the time.
Always.
So. Yeah, I would just like one of their wide receivers. And this isn't even like a fantasy take. I just want them to be impressive. Yeah. I know that Travis Kelce is the number one wide receiver. And I did see a meme the other day that was like, the year is like 2056. Patrick Mahomes has just won his 25th Super Bowl off of the back of a 30 touchdown season from a 65-year-old Travis Kelce. Yeah. They still did not have a wide receiver surpass 1,000 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not make that a reality.
Are they having fun? That's gonna be my storyline. Are they having fun? Are they enjoying themselves?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna be winning a lot of football.
I really
games.
don't have much to add there. That's the thing. Like they're gonna be good. All right. AFC East, the New England Patriots. Mine is the addition of Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator / QB coach. He obviously worked with Mac Jones, went at Alabama during their 2020 national championship run where they won it. Can he help Mac Jones? I want to read a blurb from the Patriots website that really went into like a lot of information about Bill O'Brien's play style, play calling style and stuff. So the blurb says, another Bill O'Brienism is how he coaches progression reads for his quarterbacks. O'Brien will always design plays for the quarterback to start on the vertical read and then work their eyes back to the horizontal routes. For instance, if it's a right to left progression read, the vertical routes will be to the quarterback's right and he'll work the horizontal reads on his left. So I'm intrigued to see, going through, obviously he helped coach him at Alabama, but this is a different level. So teaching things as simple as progression reads and going over it with him again, which honestly was an area I thought he struggled last year, but just being able to fully complete his reads before making a decision, doing it fast enough. How well does that work out for Mac Jones and I guess Bailey Zappi? And congratulations, they finally have an offensive guy calling offensive plays. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I hate Joe Judge.
I
had to look up to see if he was still on the staff. He is. He's just the assistant head coach. It's just a dumb title. I don't believe that he does anything. Yeah. Regardless, I didn't have much written. I couldn't think of much. I like Ramondre Stevenson, and I would like to see him have a breakout season. That's the main thing I'm looking for. And I want to see if Zeke is completely washed and if Dallas Cowboys fans will finally be able to admit it now that he's not on their team. So
true. The Jets. I don't know if we have the same answer. Do you want to go first? Or want to go first?
Yeah, I don't think we do because I saw your answer.
Okay.
But very specifically, well, actually, no, mine is a little more broad. I want to know what the identity of the team is. I want to see if they can keep it under control, the circus that it's kind of turned into already, especially with Hard Knocks, and if they can avoid what happened at Denver last year. It's obviously a different situation with head coach, especially Nathaniel Hackett versus Robert Saleh. They're not really comparable. Robert Saleh has already been a head coach for quite a number of years now. He's proven, I think, to be at least a competent head coach, which is more than they can say about Nathaniel Hackett. Ironically, he is the offensive coordinator. But when you bring in an Aaron Rodgers and you've got this young, hungry team, it's not impossible for it to fall apart. We've seen situations like that fall apart before. In fact, I feel like they don't work more often than they do. I mean, look at the Colts. It was Phillip Rivers after Andrew Luck. They won one game. They made the playoffs, kind of whatever. But like we've seen that. Matt Ryan, the same exact thing in Indianapolis, of course. But we've seen that type of situation happen before, and it's never necessarily been great. So I don't know. I want to see what their team is. Is it the Aaron Rodgers circus in New York? Is it the team that we kind of liked last year, beside Zach Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers just kind of falls in line, does this thing, plays football? I don't know. But that's the thing that I'm most intrigued by because I think it can really, make or break their entire season. Yeah.
And mine in general is just Aaron Rodgers and how well he is, so many storylines within it. I was on the Greg Thompson show where we did a draft of fantasy of storyline. We did a fantasy style draft of storylines. I talked a lot about how it's like super compounding, how there's like 100 different things you could talk about involving Aaron Rodgers. Like, how well is he going to do in the New York media? How well is he going to do with a new organization for the first time? How well is he going to do in a new scheme? Like, there's 1,000 things. I'm just really intrigued to see him as a whole, his leadership qualities with the Jets on a team that has a lot of young talent. And one of my fellow guests had said something along the lines of like, if this doesn't work out, what happens to Robert Saleh? Like, what amount of wins is okay for people to keep their jobs, which I'm intrigued about, especially in a division where you have three teams in that division that'll be vying for playoff spots. I'm going to call the Patriots out, but the rest of them are. So. Yeah. All right. And for the Dolphins,
I think we have the same one.
Okay. To his health.
I'll let you go. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I did talk about this on there. For me, it comes a little bit more from a scientific point of view. Obviously I studied CTE and brain injuries in my undergrad. So looking at like how much of a bubble they're going to put around him. Like if he does get hit and something is considered borderline, are they going to consider it, pulling him more for safety precautions, and just how healthy he can stay overall. I mean, his health has been a concern all the time, but for my focus this year is specifically on head injuries and concussions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't something that we've really seen before, not in this way. It's never been a franchise level quarterback who's nearing that, he's nearing the point where an extension is going to become a reality soon. He's still on his rookie deal. He's had these really scary, very, very public concussions, and he's young. And you throw all that together, and it's just not a situation we've seen. We've seen the Wes Welkers of the world, the, 34-year-old slot wide receivers that'll get a couple, and then it's like, all right. Or maybe an offensive lineman here or there, but never. Tua Tagovailoa is such a known player.
Even if you don't know football, like if you don't know football that well, Tua. Like,
it's
not
one of quite what it was when he was in college.
No,
but it was always thanked for
name.
Tua.
Yeah, it's Tua. Like,
so it's very intriguing because all eyes are going to be on them, and I don't know how they're going to handle it. I don't know how Tua is going to handle it. I mean, after one hit, what happens? It's going to be scary, I think, for a lot of people, and it's going to be really interesting from a just human life standpoint to watch. So
yeah, I agree. And how about Buffalo Bills for you?
So I got two. My first one is very simple, and it's just DeMar Hamlin. Just want to see him back out there again. I think that's going to be incredible, and I'm looking forward to watching the first game that he plays in. I think it's going to be week 1, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, that stadium's going to go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But more so than that is Von Miller. They signed him to a massive deal last offseason. He got injured, more than halfway through last season, but he was having a pretty good year. I think he had 8 sacks. And he's Von Miller. He's one of the best pass rushers ever. And they signed him hoping that he would be the difference maker that pushes them over the edge to finally. I mean, in reality, it's beat the Chiefs in the playoffs and beat the Bengals, whoever it is, but to become the kings of the AFC, to really take that next step. And I think it's going to be interesting to see whether Von Miller can heal from that injury at this age and still be the producer that he's been for most of his career. And I think it's going to be a very important part of their season and whether or not they can take that next step. Yeah.
And for me, it is looking out for some of like Josh Allen's and the team's woes from last season. There were times where he did not look great, and I will give it to him. He had the injury in his elbow and his throwing arm. And I think that probably factored in a bit. But there was a 4-week stretch there where his passer rating was a 74.1, which is 30th in the NFL. The offense had, in the first 10 games, were 21st in red zone scoring percentage. There were just key moments where he didn't show up last year, and it could have made the difference. So was it the injury? Was it first year without Brian Daboll and trying to adjust after his departure? I'm just looking out for some of those key stats to see how well, if they're improving on things like that at the start of the season this year.
I agree. I think that's a very interesting thing that we'll be watching.
Yes.
And then finally, last but not least, the AFC North. I'll start with the Browns, and because I think I know what yours is. I went in a different direction, and it's actually the defense. Something that I think for a while was very strong. They've got a decent amount of very solid players, and it just wasn't up to snuff last year. They were 23rd in DVOA, and they needed to make a change. And what they did was they brought in, I think, one of the most respected defensive minds in the NFL and one of the most historically successful in recent years, and that's Jim Schwartz. He was a huge part of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl in 2017. He got the job as the Detroit Lions head coach back in the day. It didn't go well, but he got that job because of how good of a coordinator he was. And that's one thing he's always been really good at, is coaching a defense and getting the best out of his pass rushers, especially with the wide 9. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see Myles Garrett in that defense. And I think it could be a really big year for Myles Garrett, the type that, finally reminds people how good he is. Because I feel like even for how good he is, he sometimes flies under the radar. Like he's not put in those conversations with TJ Watt and Aaron Donald and Nick Bosa and even Joey Bosa. And I think I would take Myles Garrett over Nick Bosa any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And like,
I always think about that jacket he wore last season. It was sick.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm gonna find a picture for you
after
show
me
this.
Afterward.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm just intrigued to see what happens to the defense. Jim Schwartz has got a lot of experience, and I think he's just going to be able to go in there and make an immediate impact.
Mm-hmm. Mine, I'll keep short and sweet. Running low on time, and I don't like talking about the guy. Is Deshaun Watson just bad now? He obviously served an 11-game suspension at the beginning of the season, but he went 3 for 3. He had a below 80 quarterback rating, his worst ever, I believe. He had a 58% completion percentage. Does he just stink, or was he rusty?
When you say went 3 for 3, what does that mean?
Like 3 wins, 3 losses.
Oh,
yeah.
3
Sorry,
and 3.
I should 3 and sorry. Yes, 3 and 3.
Yeah, I was like, well, how did he only throw 3 passes?
Could you imagine?
So that's not a 58%
that would have been the storyline. Sorry,
yeah.
3 and 3.
He apparently had a very tough week in Philly at the joint practices. It's very entertaining when Philly Twitter gets a hold of someone like that because ESP, Elliot Shore-Parks, who is not a beat reporter most Eagles fans really like. He's very hot takey. And it's just painful sometimes to even read. But he tweeted about how Deshaun Watson just did not play well. One thing ESP does very well is he tracks quarterback stats through these practices. And Deshaun Watson had, I believe, 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in the 2 joint practices. That's terrible. 5 interceptions is really bad. And I think 3 of them were Reed Blankenship, second year undrafted safety.
I actually saw something about that.
He's a beast, though. Don't sleep on Reed Blankenship. He's going to be a breakout this year. He didn't even play in the first preseason game.
They are brothers, correct?
I don't think so, no.
I thought they were. Maybe they weren't.
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But yeah, Reed Blankenship out of Middle Tennessee State University. So, big school. But then Deshaun Watson hit him with the, a cap tweet. It was like, that's false. And then, of course, you got all the, Joel Bitonio, the guard, all-pro guard for the Browns, was like, yeah, there were some cheap shots at practice on Deshaun Watson. Then you got all the, he was probably asking for it. What was he wearing? So, classic. Just, nothing quite like Philly, especially when we're going through something with the James Harden thing. Like, you just don't give us an excuse to be pissy in your direction. But moving on, the Steelers for me. For me, it's the offensive line makeover. They drafted Broderick Jones, who's probably going to start at one of the tackle spots in the first round. Offensive tackle out of Georgia. He's a bit raw, but he's just got a ton of talent. And then also they signed Isaac Samalu, a longtime Eagle. He played right guard for the last bunch of seasons for the Eagles. And honestly, it's tough because it's not like offensive linemen are often viewed as big names or like guys. It's like the stars of the show. But in Philly, that's kind of not as much the case because Jason Kelsey's Jason Kelsey. Lane Johnson might be the best tackle in all of football. Jordan Mailata was a 7th-round pick that had never played football before and only played rugby, so he's a human interest story. And Landon Dickerson went to Alabama. You've got all these interesting guys. Then Isaac Seumalo is just kind of the forgotten man, but he's so good and so solid. I think that's a massive get for the Steelers. He signed a good-sized contract, and I think you throw him on that offensive line, it's just going to create a sense of consistency and steadiness that offensive line has not had for the past few years. And that's going to be great for Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris.
And that goes off of what I was going to talk about, which is I'm just looking at Kenny Pickett as a whole. Can he be the face of the franchise for the Steelers? He obviously had a lot of improvement come the second half of the season, especially with turnovers. He started, I talked about it a little bit when we talked about our jump show, like who we thought was going to make a jump, I think he's already on that incline, but can that stay the way it is, especially with the improvements at offensive line, which you and I talked for hours about it leading up to the draft, about how that had to be what they had to focus on. So seeing a team actually invest time and money into an offensive line for a rookie quarterback, how well is it going to pay off for them? Hopefully well.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I hope you're right. I love Blake.
For those who are in not with video, Blake has jumped on. It says, beard looks great, hair untamed. Michael and football are officially back.
Blake now has 2 children, and he still finds time to come to our streams and compliment my hair. I couldn't be more thankful. Blake, you're the best. I truly appreciate you. And yes, I was at a concert last night, and I have still not showered because I got home very late, and then got home from work late, and then I had to do this. Mm-hmm. So hair is very untamed at the moment, but nobody asked.
So Blake likes it.
No, thank you, Blake. It's very appreciated. I actually like the way it looks a little bit too, but I have to take a shower regardless because, yeah, it's very necessary. Anyway, enough about my hygiene. The Bengals. So I couldn't come up with just one thing. I have like 4 or 5 different things that I all thought were like somewhat interesting, but like not huge. I'm just gonna run through them.
Bullet points. Yeah.
I'm not gonna run. I'm just gonna run through them. The running back situation behind Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine's gone. You've got a lot of unproven guys: Chase Brown, Trayvon Williams, Chris Evans. What's it gonna look like? Joe Mixon has never been a fantastic pass blocker. That's why Samaje Perine came in. So what are they gonna do there? I don't know. A big shuffle at O-line. Orlando Brown comes in. He takes over at left tackle. Jonah Williams is switching to right tackle. You've still got La'el Collins there, big free agent signing from a few years ago. I don't know what that's going to look like. And then the safety position. You had Von Bell and All-Pro Jesse Bates leave. Jesse Bates signing a massive contract with the Falcons. So you've got brand new safeties. The back end of your defense. You've got Dax Hill, who was a 2022 first-rounder free agent you brought in, and Nick Scott, and then a third-rounder rookie this year, Jordan Battle. It's going to be very interesting. I'm just looking forward to seeing how those things shake out. And, you know, they're kind of in that last time frame of when they still don't need to pay a lot of their young stars. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
You touched on mine a little bit, and mine is specifically the offensive line. Last year, the PFF pass block grade was 53.1, fourth worst in the NFL. Burrow was sacked 41 times in the regular season, which was 6th worst in the NFL. Obviously, you mentioned the signings and stuff. How well does it work for them? Sharp Football Analysis has predicted them in the top 15 this year. I did like the quote there from Ryan McChrystal, which says the big move for the Bengals this offseason was adding Orlando Brown Jr. through free agency to start at left tackle. The former Chief allowed 10 sacks in 2 years at Kansas City. Former starter Jonah Williams allowed 13 in that sport for the Bengals last year alone.
He was a rookie. Leave him be.
I know, I get it, but it's still an upgrade. Like, whether you were learning or not, it's Orlando Brown. So how well does that translate for the team as a whole? For Joe Burrow, the dude needs to stop getting sacked. Help him, please.
Very true. It's very important for his long-term health.
Yeah. And the Ravens, finally.
Yeah, I do think mine is going to go right into yours, so I'm just going to start with mine real quick. And it's the bringing in of Todd Monken. His offense, what it's going to look like, how it's going to shape Lamar Jackson's, the next chapter of his career. But his offense is predicated on more verticality, creating more space, spreading out, more no huddle. It's going to be a very different look than Greg Roman's offense that we've seen for, I believe, all of Lamar's career. So I'm very intrigued to see what that looks like and how it shakes out in Baltimore.
Yeah, and that goes hand in hand, like you said, with mine. Mine was Lamar Jackson. Can he live up to his price tag, play through the air? He obviously signed the 5-year, $260 million deal, $185 in guarantees. Last year, they were 28th in pass attempts. But I think Todd Monken changes a lot of that. My big thing is, like, he can still keep that run identity that the Ravens have. He ran a run-heavy offense in Georgia, but his style just helps create a much more balanced attack and gives them more options, whereas the Ravens had mostly one option, right? I want to see Lamar Jackson get back to the throwing he had in his MVP season. And Monken helped direct a Browns offense that in 2019 had Nick Chubb, who produced the league's second most rushing yards. Baker Mayfield threw for a single season career high of 3,827 passing yards and 22 touchdowns. With the addition of OBJ and Zay Jones, I think we're going to see progression back to the person Lamar Jackson is. And I think Todd Monken is going to play a huge, huge role in that. And I think that's honestly the number one storyline I'm looking at right at this time, is seeing what that Ravens offense looks like on week 1 with Todd Monken at the helm.
Very well said.
Yay. Well, that's the AFC. Done.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Do you want to wrap it up? Where can we find you, Michael Duncan?
You can find me in China, screaming at children at a basketball camp about how Daryl Morey is a liar and I will never work with him again. My name is James Harden. I have a very large beard, and I thrive on making Philadelphia fans depressed. But you can also find me on Twitter at mpduncan75, and you can find me doing Undroppables things and other stuff.
Fun. You can find me listening to the Jonas Brothers' old album. It's so good, and the Jonas Brothers are touring right now, and I didn't get to go to the concert, and I'm so happy listening to that. And you can follow me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's at the beginning of Ashley. Me, Duncan, the entire Undroppables crew on our Discord channels on patreon.com/theundroppables. I'm going to reshare that link on my Twitter after we get off here for the auction for the families in Lahaina. Please consider donating. But thank you for joining us this lovely Wednesday night. You could see us here live Wednesday night, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Wednesday. And listen, review, give us a big thumbs up wherever you listen to your podcasts. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we hope to see you next week.
Alrighty. Go Birds.
Bye.